Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you wherever you are, because it is Morning Somewhere for January 2nd, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns. With me, right over there, is head cheerleader Ashley. How are you?
Feeling very enthusiastic.
I'm in a collegiate mood today.
Yes, I can tell, because someone was up all night
I was up all night
watching college football.
If I sound a little froggy today, it's because when the Texas Longhorns versus the Washington Huskies, well-played game, by the way, on all sides, that started here at our time at about 2 in the morning. So I had to wake up and watch it. I ended up watching both the playoff games last night, but I also sound a little froggy.
What do you mean both the playoff games?
Last night was the semifinal round, excuse me, I don't know why I said semifinal, of the college football playoffs. And so only 4 teams make it in. It's the first round is what it is.
Okay, is this single elimination, double elimination?
Yep, just straight up.
Round robin?
And then nope.
Just assume I know nothing about any of this, because I don't.
Well, they typically limit the games that football players play because of damage, right? So there's always a big gap between the season and the bowl games. Also, that's marketing stuff as well. And there was a big debate because they didn't always have a playoff. And one of the reasons was these are students and it's just more games they have to play when they're students and then athletes. You know, they're not athlete students or student athletes. So they have as few games, I think, as they can possibly get away with. They would make a ton of money if they could do a 64-team style tournament like basketball does, but there's just no way you can expect kids to play, what is that, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, and then championship game. That's 6 extra games. Yeah, it's like a whole season for college football.
But am I correct in remembering that college athletes are now able to make money? Because for a long time that was a thing, right? They weren't allowed to like make money as part of the like football. They couldn't have like sponsorships or whatever. And did that change?
It is relaxing in certain places. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with that aspect of it. You know, it was for a long time though. They couldn't make money, and in fact, they would get suspended or removed from their program and lose their scholarship and everything else. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to look it up? And I'll
talk
look a little bit about the game,
because I find it interesting that's most college athletes, that's their entire career. Most of them don't go on to the NFL. So their opportunity to make money in their career is during college.
I looked it up, and it's probably changes all the time, but the number I saw over and over again was 1.6% of college athletes make it to the NFL, which I think the solution for that is don't make them have their education at the same time as their NCAA athletics career. Have them take some classes, maybe take part-time students 6 hours a semester, which is 2 classes in the U.S. And then when their NCAA eligibility is all done and, they've made so much money for the school, then when they don't make it to the NFL, then let them get 4 years of education at the university at that point when they're not distracted by being the best athletes in the country, because what would you prioritize if you were an 18-year-old kid?
Right, who's in a star football program? Yeah, I have a very good idea what I would prioritize.
Right. I mean, we talked about it. The top 7 stadiums, of the top 10 stadiums in the world, 7 by capacity are college football stadiums in America. Or if you're an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, are you going to prioritize Calculus 1 sitting in a classroom with like 30 people, or the 110,000 people screaming for everything you do? We all know what you're going to prioritize.
So here's what I found. This is from the website scholarships360.org. College athletes do not earn a salary because that practice is prohibited by the NCAA. But in many states, college athletes can now profit off their name, image, and likeness.
That's what it is.
So basically, they can get partnerships. They can sell their own merch. They can monetize social media. One of the highest paid athletes on record so far is July 2021. College athlete Henry Hersey Miller signed a $2 million contract with a company called Web Apps America.
Oh, Web Apps America.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but they paid him $2 million, which made him one of the top paid college athletes in the nation.
It's really weird too, because whenever we talk about sports in the U.S., it's always money, 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 and all the advertisements and the Super Bowl commercials and everything. But one of the shocking things is when you come over to Europe or other just outside the U.S., all the uniforms, they all have a huge sponsor across it. In fact, a lot of times you don't see the name of the team. You just see whoever the sponsor is, and that's it. Like the football jerseys here. And you would never see that in the U.S. It's weird, the lines that everyone draws for capitalism in sports.
Yeah, for what counts and what's tasteful, and it's different for everyone. Everyone's got very different sensitivities. Mind you, everything I know about European football or soccer, I learned from Ted Lasso.
Is that right?
Pretty much.
I think everything that Ted Lasso learned from European football, you learned from Ted Lasso as well, from watching his own show. It's so crazy, too, because Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds saying how weirdly it like matched that in time.
It really
what
did.
They were doing.
Yeah. And also like that sort of like hopeful underdoggy tone. Yeah. Did great.
I think one of my favorite things I've discovered in all of that is we're off on a little bit of a tangent here. We're going to wind it back up, I guarantee. There was a pub in, I want to say it was Bristol, where the pub was, and they were showing some kind of tournament of football teams, and they had all the different teams from the UK and then Ireland, and they had all the flags written, and somebody at the bar had drawn them themselves, and they drew the Scottish flag and the English flag and the Irish flag, and then they got to Wales, and they just wrote dragon in red on it, and that's it. It's one of my favorite images.
Well, like I get it. It's like, dragon, not that easy to draw.
Yeah. Ireland, by the way, was in the tournament. I'm not saying that Ireland is part of the UK. I want to be clear. I realized the way that I said that it could be interpreted that I thought Ireland itself was part of the UK. I know it is not. But in sports news, the Michigan Wolverines defeated the Alabama Crimson Tide 27-20 in the Rose Bowl. That was an incredible game, went into overtime. The other incredible game last night was the Washington Huskies beat the Texas Longhorns. Boo-hoo to me.
I'm sorry, sweet
37-31. That's a 6-point game. It seemed way closer than it was the whole time. The Michigan-Bama game was super exciting, back and forth. Texas trailed Washington literally the entire game. They didn't have the lead the entire game. Washington would score, Texas would score, Washington would score. They scored, 68 points in total, and Texas never had the lead. But through a really crazy set of circumstances, which is why you always watch to the end, Texas was down by 2 possessions with almost no time left on the clock. Crazy. There was a guy who interfered with a fair catch and everything, and they got to where they had literally, the ref said, put 1 second back on the clock.
Whoa.
And they're on the 12-yard line. They got 1 shot with 1 second to go out there. I mean, that I'm summarizing a lot of stuff here. I'm synoping here for your synopsis. And yeah, it was great. And the Washington Huskies won. If you saw that game, there would be no way you would say they didn't deserve to win. They had some crazy stuff there at the end. They did great. Next week, or actually, I don't know when the national championship game is. The next game that they have will be the national championship between now the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines. And I can make no predictions as to what will happen there, but it should be a great game. And Texas now, and to answer your question, Texas and Bama, they're done. They do not play. They don't play for like third place or anything like that. They just go home. And they're done for the day. They go back to class. But we were talking earlier, it's crazy to me the way that video game aesthetics have worked their way into all aspects of life. Like when I was watching the game,
how so?
When I was watching the game last night, now when they can pull players, like when they're showing a replay, they like pop players up, like you can highlight them, then they'll put a ring around them. You never probably played the Madden football games or FIFA or anything like that, right?
Once or twice, but not enough to say I'm very familiar with them.
But you knew which player you were controlling because of UI on the screen and stuff like that. They add all of that in now in replays. So you can see like the path of the runner. You can see where the blockers are going. It used to be just like John Madden himself.
With the chalk drawing kind of thing, right?
It was called a telestrator. He'd go to the telestrator and he would like draw the arrows and the X's and O's and stuff like that. Look at this guy here. He's going to come over here and bam, and hit him. And now it's like you're watching this incredible like CG animation. It's just crazy. And I can't help but think that video games are one of the things that help drive that.
I mean, they almost certainly are.
It's nuts. I promise we won't talk about football the whole time, but one of the things that was I did last night was when we would be in the stands, it's one of the reasons why I can never go to these big stadiums now and watch the Longhorns play. I just don't do it anymore, and I couldn't figure out for a long time why I didn't do it. And now, after all these years, I realize it's because the experience of being a student in the student portion of the stands is just vastly superior to any other experience you're ever going to have.
There's a certain energy to live events that it's kind of hard to explain and it's impossible to duplicate. It's one of the reasons that I feel like people still go to concerts because you'll almost never see the sound quality at a concert being anywhere near what you can get at home on a good pair of speakers. But what you get instead is just like this wild energy, not just from the performer, but from all the other people who are there, who are excited. I mean, it's how mob mentality happens too, I'm sure, like how people get like swept away in an energy. But it's really, I love it. I love the energy that you can't get anywhere else.
I know exactly what you mean because I love going to concerts because whenever I watch something, I always think to myself, like if I'm watching at home, I wish there was like 80 people standing in front of me holding up a lighted rectangle. I miss that. I miss that so much. And that's weirdly, of all things, that's concerts that people do that. You'll notice people don't do that at sporting events. It's kind of the same thing. You're all watching a spectacle. But how come people aren't all standing there recording an entire football game?
Well, and here's the problem with the recording the concerts is like even if you do go and watch that back, you're not getting the energy again.
Yeah.
You're watching this pale imitation of the experience that you had instead of having the experience.
I mean, I think everyone goes through it the first time they ever like look up at the moon and they're like, wow, look at the moon tonight. And then you take out your phone and you take a photo and you look at the photo, it's like, bleh. What is it? I don't even know what that's called, but whatever the human eye can do to basically focus in and then strip out everything around it to where I can look at the detail of the moon. And a camera just doesn't have that. I think that'll be a great moment in technology when we get a camera that has some kind of like contextual, I know what you're trying to do, either by taking the photo or later by viewing the photo. And it does that function of your brain and like lets you focus in and see the moon the way you want to see it. But I was dealing with last night an insane technology thing because it's a good thing the game started at 2 a.m. because that's about how long it took me to work out how I'm going to watch this game from Scotland because no one cares about college football here. And so it's
probably sold into some obscure TV package.
So it was on ESPN. And so I went to ESPN, I got the app, and I said, I'll get a free trial. I'll pay for it. It's worth it to me. I want to be able to watch this game. It's the first time Texas was ever in the college football playoffs. And I ran into the thing that everyone runs into, which is the geo-blocking, where it's like not available in your country. And I said, haha, ESPN, don't worry, brother. I got your back. I'll get a VPN because we have a VPN here. Oh, and by the way, our first sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. Say the word VPN, everybody just starts hitting everyone starts hitting the skip forward button as soon as you say that. So I had a VPN so I could make it appear as though I was in the US. And then I loaded up ESPN and it goes, get this. It goes, you have to turn on your location services. And I was like, ESPN, help me help you. No, I'm not going to turn on and tell you where I am because I'm trying to watch your game here. Turn it on. Sure enough, it says, nah.
No.
You know what it even did? I turned on location services, went back in it, and it said, you have to turn on your precise location.
That's offensive.
A little bit offensive.
ESPN, how dare you?
But so I got to say this. It was a really frustrating process. And as someone who worked in media, I had to deal with people who were very frustrated by that process for a really long time. I get why it exists. It's because it's a protection mainly for the media companies that are in your country, because I'm sure the American media companies would like nothing better than to blast over the internet all their content.
Oh, they'd love it.
And just blanket the world in their stuff. And it would probably work. So it's kind of holding American content at bay so that British people can have their weird sitcoms that I still don't understand completely.
Faulty Towers, which is like this series I hear about all the time. That was apparently like 6 episodes.
Yeah. Can you look up Mr. Bean? Because Mr. Bean is like this iconic character. And I just learned he's only got like 12 episodes or something like that.
15
episodes. That's crazy to me. So I got to give a shout out, not a paid advertisement. YouTube TV came to my rescue. Like even when I've tried to watch baseball games, MLB, the way they do blackouts for sporting events in America is so archaic. It makes no sense. It's like you can not be able to watch your team in your hometown if the stadium doesn't sell out on some games. But it's almost Ashley, and it's like reading tea leaves, trying to figure out what the hell, how am I gonna be able to watch this game? Are they going to allow me to see the team play? Meanwhile, all my tax dollars are going to pay for their stadium. I'm off and right. But, it is very frustrating. Just let us watch the game, and that's it. That's all I ask. And that's it. That's all my college football stuff. So good luck to the Huskies. Good luck to the Michigan Wolverines. I will greatly enjoy watching you guys play without being stressed about it at all. And also, if you're one of those people, I don't know if you can tell from me, I don't get stressed about sports. I know a lot of people, boy, they get really stressed about it and they let it affect them. Don't. It's not really going to affect your life. It's the same thing as people who get like completely obsessed with celebrity news and things like that. It has no impact on your life. It was a great game last night. And sometimes it goes your way, like in the Rose Bowl when Vince Young made that play at the last minute. Sometimes it doesn't. And you can't win them all. Sometimes you lose. Sometimes you win. Sometimes
it rains.
It rains. All right.
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Other crazy thing that's going on right now in the world is copyright. January 1st, 2024, a few major copyrights expired.
Yeah, so now that we're old fogies, we're not staying up partying to midnight, being like, yeah, it's a new year, it's good. We're like, ooh, what copyrights expired this year? So exciting. Whoa. But it is an important day because so the 1st of January is when copyrights expire for things that were in 1928, I think is what it was. So now there are a couple of very important things that have happened that are now in public domain. One of the first ones, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about already, but that's Steamboat Willie. That's the earliest iteration of Mickey Mouse. It's visually distinct, and differently protected from the modern versions of Mickey, where he's got his shoes and the big eyes and the big ears and everything. But this Steamboat Willie version of Mickey is now public domain. And
there was speculation, by the way, that Disney was putting him at the beginning of movies the last few years because they wanted to make an argument that he was part of their trademark.
And they're probably not wrong about that. So it'll remains to be seen how exactly they're able to protect that, because trademark doesn't expire, right? But copyright does. So this version of Mickey Mouse is now public domain, but the later versions remain protected. And whether they use their Walt Disney Animation introduction with him to try to protect against some of these weird uses, like it's been 24 hours and there's a slasher film that's been announced in the vein of the Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey that happened the early Winnie the Pooh copyright expired.
How do you feel about that? Can I just ask you? Why don't you read the rest of them and we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure. There's NFTs, and there's also like he's gotten kind of the Calvin and Hobbes treatment, where remember there's the Calvin peeing on like whatever your truck logo of choice is, stickers in the US that were always a big thing. By having him like swear or shoot people, have him crash the Titanic, and these are all now public domain. I feel like this is sort of like people going wild with it because they can.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not necessarily gonna last. I don't know how much people actually care about Steamboat Willie, except that he's been off limits and now he's not. But this weird trend of like slasher films for no longer copyrighted children's characters, I guess I'm not really on board with it because they feel like in sort of poor taste. You can do them. I don't have to like them.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you find yourself defending a big company like Disney and you get why copyright has to expire, but and people are free to go do that stuff and make a slasher film with a children's character, but we're free to also not like it as well and say that's not cool.
Being like, yeah, it's like you can do it. It doesn't make it classy.
Yeah,
you're still not classy. But there's also like a horror game called what's this called? It's called Infestation 88. That's a survival horror game using Steamboat Willie Mickey and just kind of weird stuff. But what's weird is I feel like, of course, Steamboat Willie's taking the big focus, but there's also like some Agatha Christie stuff entering public domain. And I'll be curious to see, what happens with that. Like, are people going to make more of these sort of like horror Agatha Christie films now that it's easier, or are we going to see more of that in media? I don't know.
Why don't we can talk about this tomorrow, because I do want to talk to you more about it. And we've worked a lot with copyrighted material and stuff because we worked with video games and everything else. So why don't we plan to talk maybe a little bit more about it tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely.
As
Can
well?
do.
Okay. All right. Well, that does it for us today, January 2nd, 2024. Did I say 23 at the top?
No, I don't know. We'll
I'll
have
do
to go back and listen to that.
Got to back and check. Last night, my drink of choice was Jim Beam out of a plastic cup with Coke in it, because that's what I used to drink when I was at UT.
Nice.
And then afterwards, I ran through a sheep pasture and got tackled by a ram. It was a tough night. So don't do that, everybody. All right. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We will be here to talk to you tomorrow. Hope you'll be here as well.